Okay, so let us carry on. It looks like this is our fourth lecture on the topic of motivation and emotion, which is chapter 10. We left off in the previous slide talking about obesity and some of the cultural variables involved in eating behavior. Then this lecture video, there's just a couple different theories, but I realized only after I had turned that other one off that I had not addressed or we had not discussed eating disorders. So it depends on which textbook, and I'm not sure what your textbook what your textbook says, but some textbooks offer 3 eating disorders and other only include 2. So the first 2 that you're no doubt are familiar with is anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa. I have to look up what nervosa means. Somebody should look that up and tell me. And then the third one that sometimes is in textbooks refers to binge eating disorder. So anorexia, this is what characterizes the 2, and by far the one that is the most deadly is anorexia. And this is the one where people refuse to maintain a normal body weight. So they have and it's characterized by a distorted sense of body image. They look at themselves in the mirror, they're just bone, and they see themselves as fat, and therefore they refuse to eat. And so one of the hallmarks of anorexia is this skeletal, or what's referred to as body wasting. And that's what this image over here is. So you see like muscle wasting. Once all of your fat is gone, then your body starts eating its own fat, its own tissue. And a lot of anorexic people may grow like a kind of body hair. And this body hair is also covered the bodies of premature babies. And it's a way to keep the body warm. Right, so these are signs when there's not enough fat for you to stay warm, then your body starts to grow hair on it. And the reason, so what's dangerous for the anorexic is, say they get medical care and they're hospitalized, but a lot of some of their organs may have begun to shut down. So you can't. It's like feeding a starving person. You can't just feed them a lot of food because their body has kind of forgotten how to metabolize. It's kind of forgotten how to digest. And it can be quite deadly. Bulimia is, in the individuals with bulimia do maintain a normal body weight, but they do the binge and purge thing. So they may eat a normal amount of food and then they'll go vomit it up, or they may eat an excessive amount of food and then they go vomit it up. And the bulimics suffer from or potentially they suffer from like throat cancer, from all of the stomach acid coming up. It may cause the back of their teeth to rot, but they maintain a normal body weight. My only experience, my daughter had a friend who was bulimic, and these are more common. The pattern is they're more common in girls around teenage years. It is not exclusively women, and it is not exclusively young adults or teenagers either. Men can have men do develop these symptoms too, but my personal experience with bulimia is when my kids were in elementary school. I was at a pumpkin eating contest one year around Halloween, and there was an acquaintance of mine in front. She was a tiny woman, and I was like, how is she? Like, really? This woman's gonna binge on pumpkin eating on anyway. And then after we were over, my mom says, or my daughter says to me, hey, so-and-so's mom was in the bathroom throwing up. Well, that was the woman who was in front of me in line. So I don't know if she was a bulimic, but I thought that was interesting. Binge eating disorder is a phenomena of, and again, this is the one that doesn't always show up in the textbook, but this is a phenomena of where you binge eat like a whole bag of chips or a whole gallon of milk or a whole carton of ice cream, and then you feel bad. So in other words, then you regret and you feel gross, but you don't purge. So bulimia, you may binge and then purge, but the binge eating disorder person just binges and doesn't do the purging part. But it's also, so what really characterizes that is the sense of regret or the sense of disgust. It's a little bit like the alcoholic, right? And that the alcoholic says, I'll never do that again, and they do it again. Okay, so let's change subjects here. Okay, so this is what I've been talking about on and off. I mentioned it earlier in the semester. Some of you may have seen an assignment early in the semester that later got moved. And I thought that I wanted to talk more about it because it wasn't terribly clear. So again, this is the chapter on motivation. Motivation defined as goal-directed behavior. Maslow, who's a humanist, and that's what he studied was motivation, he argued that our goal-directed behavior, we are motivated, and our motivations are in a hierarchy. They are in layers, and there are lower level, and he called them needs, that there are lower level needs and that there are higher level needs. And if we're ever going to direct our behavior to these higher level needs, we first have to meet the lower level needs, right? This hierarchy of needs. At the very bottom, right, are the physical needs, food, water, and sleep. And if we are hungry, it doesn't matter what the environment is, that we must have food, water, and sleep. And we will put ourselves at risk to get food and water, right? Because above food, water, and sleep, the next level of needs are the safety needs. Safety, interestingly, comes second after food and water, okay? Now, I always think of the homeless people, and I think of the first season of Walking Dead. I'm kind of getting dating myself here. But you know, the first thing that what Rick does when he wakes up in the first season of Walking Dead is he runs from the zombies, right? Yeah, well, see, that's kind of reversed because then the next thing he does. And he looks for shelter. So you got to have something, and people will put themselves at risk when they're hungry enough, or they will put themselves at risk if they are thirsty enough, right? And then, or you can think of a homeless person as the same kind of thing, that they will, they will walk and dig through until they find food. And then once they find food, then they'll go someplace safe in order to eat it. Well, animals, right? Animals do the same thing. So the next level of need is safety and security. Your homeless person finds something to eat, they go find a nice safe spot under the bridge, right? The next level of need, and I just assume that all of us have both of those needs met. The next level of need is social needs. This is when the homeless person gets a dog or looks for a friend, or when Rick Grimes in Walking Dead starts to look for his family, right? The next thing we need is because we are social animals, is then we will go look for somebody. We want to be in the company of an animal or a person. We will seek out, right, social needs. We can't, it's difficult for us to do our job well when we're really lonely. When we move to a town, right, we get our house all situated, and then we look for a community, maybe a church or something, right? Because the next level of need is a sense that we're not alone. At the next level of need, and this is where you're probably all at, is what's referred to as esteem needs. So after you have something to eat, someplace to live, and a couple friends, right? Then then you just have the sense that I need to be more. I need to do something. I need to accomplish something. And you might do things like take up a hobby, go back to school. You might do things, right? So esteem needs are the efforts that we have maybe when we're getting a little bored, right? We paint the fence, or we do a cross stitch, or we take a class, or we learn something new, right? It's not enough just to sit around and talk to your friends, but now maybe you take up a hobby, you start whittling or something, right? In Maslow's hierarchy, the last level of need is the self-actualization. At the very, very tip top is, and I'm going to give you a scale in one of the exercises so that you can sort of play around with this and get a better sense of what I'm talking about. But at the very tip top of his level was the self-actualization. And self-actualization was defined as being the best version of yourself you could possibly be. Right? You are actualized, you have reached your full potential. This is the best version you can be. And you can kind of get a sense when this is something that people are struggling with, when, you know, they have a nice house, they have a good job, they got healthy kids, they got it, you know, they have nice vehicles, they have plenty of friends, but they're just miserable. They've never been more successful in their life, but they are miserable. And that's kind of what is meant by self-actualization. It's like, this is just not what, this is just not who I am. And self-actualization is the being able to be your authentic self, right? Being true to yourself. Um, I guess that's the best I can sort of get. But there are some characteristics associated with the actualized self. They include things like spontaneity, open to criticism, not being persuaded by other people. And the notion is that this actualized individual is someone who is comfortable enough in who they are, that you can tell me what you think is wrong with me. I'm okay with that, right? And they're spontaneous because they're not really responsive to the expectations of other people. Like, oh, instead of saying, oh, I would love to do that, but oh, I'd be so embarrassed, the actualized person says, that's gonna make me I'm gonna be a more interesting person if I do it, so I'm just gonna do it, right? Instead of the not actualized person that's just constantly second guessing themselves, kind of thing. And I'll talk more about that when I get to that assignment. In the assignment where you see two triangles and you see Maslow's triangle and you see another triangle, what the second one has added to it is it has expanded on Maslow's original model and included 3 other needs. One of those needs, and that's what I have here sort of indented, right? One of those additional needs are the need to know, or the knowledge need, the aesthetic need, which is how pretty things are, and then the third one is transcendence. So this additional component adds knowledge and aesthetics, and it says esteem needs, right? That's Maslow's. That's need to accomplish, but once we've accomplished something, we might also have this need to understand. I think I have a very high knowledge need. I ask a lot of questions. I always want to understand why somebody did something. I'm always like researching, or not always, but you know, I'll often go out if I can't figure out a question, I'll go onto the internet and try to find it. Aesthetic needs are, we like things pretty, right? We like art. I have a very low aesthetic need, right? You can see in my little gray space, I don't have, fashion is not a thing. You know, black, gray, those are my colors. Other people spend a lot of energy to surround themselves by pretty things, right? They decorate their office before they moved in, as opposed to, right? Okay, and then the third addition to Maslow's hierarchy is transcendence. And the idea about transcendence is that once I have become the best version of myself, now I want to help others become the best version of their self. People like teachers and trainers and coaches and motivational speakers would be really good if they had a high transcendence need, right? I mean, it's one thing to invest in your own personal growth, but it's another thing to just really, really want to help other people become the best version of their self. So the assignment that you probably have seen before, and I'm going to reopen, is for you to look at these two hierarchies and notice the differences between these two theories. Okay, I hope that makes some sense. Okay, I want to cover 2 more slides before I wrap this lecture up. Okay, so there's another couple theories about motivation, or another set, some other psychological need. And another theory is what's referred to as achievement motivation. Oh, yeah, and achievement motivation is people who are motivated, and this is what teachers and motivated bosses could do if you're really trying to, or coaches or life coaches, right? So achievement motivation says is that people will work harder when when it's something that they want, when they want to demonstrate that they're better at somebody else, and when the expectations are high. So no, that doesn't really make very much sense. But the idea is that achievement motivation says that you will be more motivated if you want it and you're likely to get it, right? Those are the things. So highly motivated people choose moderately challenging tasks. That if the task is too hard, you're not going to try it, right? You're not even going to try it. If the task is too easy, you're also not going to try it. But people who are highly motivated will work hard to get things that they're fairly confident that they can get, right? That's achievement. And we like people who are motivated by achievement. They like the certificates. They like I think about Girl Scouts, where you used to get the badges. I think about like the DAR group I'm in, where you get the pins. When I was working at the fabric store, you get a pair of scissors every time you did right? People who like or military people that like all of the pins and the badges, right? Those are sort of intended, if you will, to speak to achievement motivated people. Okay, and then this is the last theory of motivation, and the remaining lectures are a little different than this one, but the remaining lectures are about emotions. And so this theory is the theory on self-determination theory. And this is a really important idea too. I don't want to rush this one. It's a really important idea. But what self-determination theory says is that people will work harder when they have these three components, right? They'll work harder when they have the three components: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. In other words, people will work harder at tasks when they get to choose it, right? That's what autonomy is. Take that word apart. Autonomy. When I get to choose what to do, I will work harder than when you tell me what to do. When I can do it, I will work harder at things that I am capable of doing. I'm not going to try very hard at things that I'm not capable of doing. So if it's too hard or I haven't been trained, I'm not even going to try. Like, I'm not even going to try to, climb a mountain because I know I can't. But I might try to, ski a green. I don't know, I'm making stuff up, right? Like I'm not going to try to do physics, but I could probably try to do college algebra. I'll work harder at trying to do something that's within my capacity to actually be successful at. And the third one is when I understand how this task is relevant to me and to other people. So when I can connect it to people or my social place, relatedness, when it has something to do with, I want to say something to do with other people, but it's not exactly like that. It's like when it makes sense to me how it's related to somebody else, then I'm more likely to do it. So relatedness. So if I decide how to do it, I can do it, and it connects me with other people, right? I will work harder than I will if you come and tell me how to do something that's hard and I don't see any purpose. I don't see any social or purpose for doing this. I'm not even going to try. But you give me something, you tell me it's important for my family, and I can do it, okay, I'll work harder at that. That's sort of what self-determination theory is. And so one of the things that I try to do as an instructor is all the assignments that I build them so that you have, well, face-to-face classes, my students get a little bit more choices, but they're not terribly challenging, and they're about you, right? Because you'll work harder at things that aren't too hard and are about you. You can connect to yourself. Okay, intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. I feel like we may have covered this in another chapter, but it may be in another class. What these two ideas mean is that when I am intrinsically motivated, oh, look at that, it's a spelling mistake. No, that is just a mistake. That's not a spelling mistake, that is just a mistake. It should say intrinsic versus extrinsic. Extrinsic motivation is when you give me something. Intrinsic, mistake here, is when I do it because it makes me feel good. And we probably all know that we will work harder when it makes us feel good. Like, yeah, we'll work for an extrinsic reward, but eventually, I think as we were talking about in another lecture, eventually I may not want that extrinsic reward anymore, but as long as it always makes me feel good, I'll work harder at it. So we do it because it feels good to do a good job, not because I might get a raise. That's not a really good example. I hope this makes some sense. I think I've made this video too long. So I'm going to stop here. And the next videos are about emotions, and look for some assignments. Thank you for listening.